Well, hi, everybody. My name is Kate Norton. I'm with the Sales Collective, and we are so excited to have all of you joining us, whether you're listening live or you're going to be listening on the recording or catching us on LinkedIn. Thank you very much for being here. I have with me two very esteemed guests from the Sales Collective today. We have Tabitha Cavanagh, who is our sales specific recruiter. And we are so blessed to have Steve Heroux join us. Usually he is sitting somewhere flying across the continental United States, traveling to one of his speaking engagements, but he's with us here today. He's the visionary founder of the Sales Collective. And so we should be up for a really great conversation today. We're going to be talking about mastering sales hiring today. You're joining us for the right people, right sales seat conversation. And this is one of our webinars in our Rocks to Revenue series. So thanks so much for joining in again and look forward to seeing you on future ones. Feel free to use the chat today. If you have any questions, we'll be monitoring that and we would love to get to all of your questions. We hope to have a really engaging time today, just talking about how to help you with sales hiring. And if you are a company that runs on a business operating system like EOS, we'll be sprinkling in some of that language. And we're off to the races here. So again, Tab, Steve, thanks for being here.
You bet. Excited.
Absolutely.
Thanks, y'all, for listening. And those of you guys and gals on the recording, we can't wait to get started.
Well, I think this is an interesting group that we have here because we have a visionary founder, right? We have somebody who has sat in a business development sales seat for my entire career. I've been on the enterprise side and the entrepreneurial side. And then we have Tab, who is in a really unique recruiting position because she hires specifically vets, attracts, qualifies salespeople and sales leaders. So I think we should have like an interesting, conversation here on some best practices. So let's maybe just kick it off with, Steve, you started the Sales Collective. You had an idea, right? And then this idea grew and grew to the point that you're like, man, like I can't do it all. You were successful and you start thinking like a lot of other visionaries, entrepreneurs who are out there, okay, maybe I'm ready for my first salesperson. So can you talk us through like how you got to that spot? What went through your head about who you wanted to come in and then just the process that you undertook getting the right person in the right seat?
Sure. And it's funny, some of y'all who I'm so thankful and glad that work with us and our amazing team probably don't know the full breadth of this story about employee number one. It rhymes with Benet, not Jane. It's Janae, by the way. But anyway, when I started, I knew the type of character I wanted in somebody. And that's really the advice I could give y'all is you've got to hire for character, not skill. If they happen to have great skills and great character, that's great. If they have great skills and low character, bad. So character first. And when I wanted to find an amazing person, and Tab knows you'll hear her excellence soon about the job ad writing and how critical it is. And so I looked at all of the job ads for salespeople at the time. This is in 2020, and most of them, were how do I say this? Shit. So I'm not doing this. So my first job ad I wrote, I wanted to attract the type of person that I wanted to work with. So the ad was something like, "Hey, salespeople, looking to continue to get abused, want unrealistic sales goals and dumbass quotas." Like that was the ad. I think I had like 200 responses, something like that, like an inordinate amount. And so then I put one up on Indeed as well. And I think it's Indeed tab, the one where you can have selection questions, like you can put set questions, right, that people have to answer. And so
Yep.
one of the questions I put on there was, you know, are you a closer? Right. And I, put four answers, right? But number one was always be closing. Number two was whatever, right? Anyone that put always be closing, I immediately eliminated, right? They would
Yeah.
instantly fail. So when I ended up interviewing Janae, and we had such a great talk, Bad Owl Coffee Company in Las Vegas. Anyway, at the end, I go, "Hey, listen, we have no sales. I have no money. We have no leads. Do you want to work together? And she was like, I thought you'd never ask. I mean, it's literally how it happened. And that's what it was. I was honest. I didn't want to make any promises I couldn't fulfill. Like I had
Yeah.
done zero Vistage talks. Like there was nothing. It was like nothing. Or maybe one. But I had a vision of what I wanted it to be, and I wanted to build it, with the right people. And I will turn this over to Tab in a second. You have to be very careful, everybody, if it's your first hire. Um, Kate and I know this. We were at an event and we were talking about what do we say, right? When someone comes, well, what do you do? What's a sales collector do? Blah, blah, blah. And somebody asked me this at an event and I just spit it out and I said, well, we're in disaster mitigation. And the gal's like, what the hell are you talking about? I thought you were like a sales consultant. I go, well, we are. We help mitigate disastrous sales hires. So no matter what y'all hear today, like Tab is amazing and Kate's incredible, but we can't promise like we'll find the Serena Williams of salespeople. Like those people are liars. But we can help companies not make horrible hires. And so that's the most important thing. And if you hire for character, the odds of it being a horrible hire are slim to none. If you hire just on sales skills and getting the close and all that stuff, you're opening yourself up for a disaster. So that
Well,
was
and
my advice.
Tab,
Well, what I love
yeah,
what you
Tab, go ahead.
said is just about the job ad and how you framed the role in that I don't have anything. We don't have sales. We don't have this. We don't have that. And I think that's so smart and what a lot of people really miss today because they want to sound perfectly polished. They want people to know how great they are and all the things. But what matters most are actually those moles, those imperfections, the things that someone wants to run towards. They should want to help you solve your problem. And it'll be very clear if they do not. So it was great because Janae wanted to help solve for those types of problems. And she's still here today, right? What is that?
Still here, by the way, for some reason, 5 years later. But
5 years later.
love
I
you,
mean,
Janine.
in the sales world today, as many of you probably know, that is quite a long time. You do see some legacy people that are tenured with companies, but a lot of times you're seeing 2 years, maybe three. If you see someone 4 years, you're like, whoa, they've been here a lifetime. So, I mean, to see Janae here still 5 years later, you obviously did something right on the front end. So yeah, I just wanted to applaud the transparency, which is such a buzzword, but you show what happens behind that buzzword, the details in the story. So that's awesome.
And I think that's a great way to kind of set this up, just talking about your own personal experience, Steve, and and hiring, based on character. And oftentimes you were lucky, right? Like you hired based on gut. And visionaries, their gut is their superpower. It's what helps them be sensitive to the marketplace. It's what helps them be sensitive to making, big, bold decisions, with their company. But also that sensitivity can be a kryptonite, right? It can actually put them in a situation where they are making people decision based on gut. And so gut decision on Janae, yes,
What
like awesome, right?
one important thing I told you I wasn't going to tell you. It wasn't just gut, everybody. She still took sales DNA. Okay.
Right.
She still took the sales DNA test and, flying colors and like huge will to sell and some other things that were like, wow, she's going to be awesome. And so you can't just go on intuition or gut or whatever. And that's why using the sales DNA test is just extra data to help you make a less terrible decision.
Yeah. I mean, I can attest to the fact that there's the spidey sense, right? There's people out there that have that great intuition. They're awesome at reading people. And I agree. I lean on that every day. It's been a huge part of why I'm successful in my recruitment career. But as I like to lean on the pendulum example, is that over here, you've got your sales personality, well, there's not a sales personality, but you've got your personality, your gut feel, some of those intangibles. And then on the other side, you have the sales DNA, you have the sales specific questionnaire that's measuring competencies. And so, I like to meet in the middle. This isn't the end all be all. This isn't the end all be all. But right here, when you're mashing all those things together, you're using your smarts mixed with the data that's going to show you what you're getting when someone walks through the door. And that's really what it's about. It's not finding the perfect unicorn. It's really about knowing who you're getting before you get them. So can I support them? Can I train them? What do I need before they show up versus what can I do to support them once they're here? And so those are the most important things to think about when you're hiring.
Absolutely. We talk a lot about tools, running on EOS ourselves and working with a lot of companies that are running on EOS. There's an amazing toolbox. And one of my favorites is the People Analyzer. And the best use of that tool is that it's utilized to make sure that the people that are on the current team will be successful. We take the core values, right? And there's a plus minus. Are they living, breathing the core values of the company? And then we look at GWC, get it, want it, capacity to do the job. And so the thing with the People Analyzer is it's fantastic, but it's also subjective. So we're talking about a lot of gut and subjectivity here, right? And so what I also really love about the sales hiring process tab that you put people through is that there is this sales DNA assessment that goes beyond the People Analyzer and looks at data points around GWC. So I would love if we could talk a little bit about the process of really going through an effective hiring process to get the right person in the right seat. So can you talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that people miss is defining the role. A lot of times people skip that part. That's one of the most important, parts of your sales process is the hiring, and people kind of go straight to all the other things that are part of a sales process. But that is the first place that I start. And that's why I started with Steve earlier, which is all growth begins by telling the truth. It's what he did when he started hiring Janae and what he continues to do in the business. And that's where people need to start when they're hiring, is by defining the role, getting together internally, having those honest conversations with one another. Because if they can't do that internally, then they won't be able to do that externally, which is where it's ultimately going to matter when you're trying to attract and onboard and retain the right aligned hire. And so that's where I start with a framework, an intake form that allows us to have live conversations together where we can really define the role together. And so from there, I mean, it's
Can
calibrating
I
the,
pause you
yeah,
there for a
yeah,
minute, right? Because
absolutely.
we have a lot of folks who don't work with recruiters and don't work with sales specific recruiters. So if somebody's doing this on their own and they're really looking to define the role, can we just pause on that for a second about how are we writing this job ad to attract the right person? So
Well,
That's
let's
what
Steve,
I
are
was
you,
gonna
yeah.
that's what I
yeah,
was gonna add too, because before tabs excellence can be derived, this is unfortunately what I see as the big bottleneck with companies today is they don't you have to kiss a lot of frogs, everybody, okay, to find your prince or princess. All right. And here's how companies hire. They happen to find they get maybe two people want to work there, and they go, well, we got Bill and Jeff. Um, Jeff doesn't have any felonies, so guess we can't hire the least worst person. So you have to get a ton of interest. And this is one of Tab's superpowers because she knows how to write job ads. And this is really important for y'all listening on the recording or live. A job ad is not a job description. Okay. A job description is for internal use only. Duties, responsibilities, requirements, like zero people, zero in the history of looking for a job, found a job ad, go home and tell their wife and go, honey, I found it. I've been looking for 30 years for this. I can't wait till you see this place. Look at this place. I have 3+ years of Excel. Okay. That's not a job ad. That's dog shit. You have to write the ad describing the person you want. And this is why Tab is so great. And I'll turn it over to Tab. That's how you get interest in people see themselves working there.
Yeah, you have
that's
to
great.
It's all about a story. It's a
Mhm.
story you want to tell. And when it goes back to this intake form that I'm talking about, which by the way, we have on our website if you'd like to grab a copy of it for yourself. And I kind of want to address quickly what Kate was saying. If you're doing it by yourself, there's a reason I host this intake call live, because typically if you're filling out a form, it isn't getting the same, zhuzh and sizzle that you would be getting from it if you were doing it live with someone. And so if you are by yourself and you're like, I don't have a recruiter, I don't really have someone else I can talk to about this, record yourself. Get the questions and start talking. Record yourself and listen back, because how you say it out loud is going to be different than how you fill out the form. I've seen that to be true 99.9% of the time. So yeah, I definitely wanted to start there. But from that intake form, that's where I pull all of the information to write the job ad. And like Steve said, a bullet pointed list of generalities isn't getting anyone excited. If anything, you're getting the meh, like very blasé candidates that are like, I just need a job. I don't even know what I'm applying to. I don't care what I'm applying to. I just need to get a call back. And that's the type of interest you're going to get, or none. I'm not sure which is worse, when you have a job description posted online parading as your job ad and your job posting. And so I pull all the information from the intake form and then I turn it into a story, something that someone wants to read, that they want to lean into. When I'm talking about it on LinkedIn, I was recruiting for an ambulance manufacturer. And when I was writing
Best job ad ever written.
their,
It's
thanks.
It
amazing.
was good. It was
Um,
good.
well, when I was writing about the job ad, and then when I was in this story, didn't go in the job ad, but it supplemented it on LinkedIn, which was I talked about a time where I called 911 and I was waiting, which felt like forever for it to get there, for my 2-year-old at the time who couldn't breathe in the middle of the night. It was the most terrifying experience I've ever had. And when I wrote about that, and it's still online, if you want to see it after, let me know and I'll send you a link to that post. But that was how I talked about the job posting. And then when people got to the job posting, it just continued to expand from there to speak about the client that we were working with at the time. And it talks about what someone should actually expect day to day. Selling to people is not a description. It's not an ad.
Tab is selling herself short, everybody. I have to cut her off because she's not going to say she's amazing. The context of the job ad was Tab's experience in the back of the ambulance with Colby, like, and how she felt taken care of. And that's what the job ad was, just so y'all know. It wasn't about the manufacturing of steel and lights, right? Or selling them. It was about how this company made her feel, and it's awe-inspiring. And so that's why people respond, because they've never seen an ad like that.
Well, it's the
Yeah,
story behind it. It's like you said, it's not about how they manufacture the ambulance. No one cares about that really, unless maybe you're a product engineer or something like that. But a salesperson doesn't really care about that. They care about the impact that their role is going to have generally, right? And so I know one of the stories that caught me from that is the ambulance that they created for a children's hospital that was catered to sensory children with like sensory type of things that they were dealing with, and how they built a custom outfitted this amazing ambulance for this children's hospital. And those are the stories that I dig out of people, and they're the stories you need to dig out of yourself when you're writing. Um, because otherwise you're just like, we're a transparent, radical company that, loves our people. Well, how? It's
yeah.
tell the story behind the buzzword. And when you pull out those details, that's when you start to really attract. So I don't want to belabor that point too much, but that's how the intake is, combined with the job ad. It's marketing collateral. And then that's really
It
what it is.
is.
Yeah,
It is a marketing collateral, and really what it's doing. So, just to summarize this, the first thing you could be doing, if you're working on attracting, a salesperson or a sales leader right now, is that you can become a storyteller, in your job ad, and you can really focus on being sure that it's shining through the impact that this person will be making, and so that they are attracted or maybe repelled, right, Tab? Because we want it to work as a function of attracting and repelling. um,
absolutely. You're doing a great
so
job if that way too. And I have to say
yeah,
that, Kate, that It's
Yeah.
okay if someone is like, hell no, I don't want to touch that
Yeah.
with a 10-foot pole. That's actually a really great reaction. It's better than them applying just because and potentially making it through your interview process, getting into your company and actually not caring at all, and maybe even still looking for another job. So, the more you can do one or the other, attract or repel,
Hmm.
you're looking for those hell yes candidates.
You
So
all
maybe
don't
put
know
your,
this. You don't know this story, Kate or Tab or anyone listening. One of the reasons the repellent is so important, why we use sales DNA, right, is to disqualify people. So let's say you have, whatever, 50 applicants. Step one, right, is we send them, again, customized sales DNA for the role. And some people don't take it, which is good because they think it's above them, right? Or they don't have time or whatever. So we got this one response back from a client. And she goes, "Hey, Steve, this is why I love sales DNA so much." And she sent me the response from an applicant. And this is about maybe a 90K, 100K, sales job. So the applicant writes back, "How dare you?" Okay, that was the first to her, right? Head of HR. "How dare you? How dare you ask me to take my time, which I value at $350 an hour, to do this assessment? I'm better than this. And if you think I'm going to do this, then you don't deserve me." Okay, the job's 90K, which is $45 an hour, just so y'all know the math. This guy says he's a $350 an hour person. So she goes, "This saved me
mhm.
so much time because his resume looked amazing. He was personally referred, and we all know recommendations. They're exactly who the person is, right? Those aren't fixed or anything." She said, "This alone is worth working with you to help me avoid guys like this."
Yeah, it's a good repellent. And so I mean we've mentioned a couple of things here where we've got a good candidate pool right now, right? We've attracted, we've repelled, and now we've talked a little bit about this sales DNA and how it goes beyond the people analyzer. So, let's jump to that as part of the process tab. You have a really strong candidate pool. Um, they've gone through your resume vetting process. So, before they get to the sales DNA, talk to us about the resume. What would somebody be looking for if they're kind of doing this at home and they're not working with you? But what are we looking for on the resume? What things do we need to have our radar up on?
I mean, for me, I'm looking for a lot of different things from us. Like if I'm when I'm speaking to job seekers to candidates and how I'm coaching them what to put on their resume, because these are the things that hiring managers are looking for. They're looking for what did you sell? Who did you sell it to? What size company were you working for? What decision makers? Generally, yes, percent to quota and things are nice, but those can be very fluffy. So I really like to see examples, which a lot of people tend to not give. So
Mm,
resumes, honestly, I'm not a huge fan of. A
yeah,
lot of my clients are looking for very niche areas, and while I love to steer them towards hey, you don't need someone that comes directly from your industry. A lot of times that is what's happening. They're looking for very specific types of people. So when I'm looking at resumes, I might be looking, I'm not a big logo person, but I might be looking for, okay, did you at least somehow touch the industry in some sort of adjacent way or those types of things. So I am really looking for those transferable competencies. I love to
yeah,
see benchmarking. I love to see you were at a company and this is where they were before you. And now that you got in there, worked your magic, got your hands on it, this is where they are now because of you. And so those types of benchmarking things are things I love to see. Again, generally people don't know how to write a resume. They rely a lot on, the ChatGPT, AI, et cetera, to write what they think is this perfectly polished resume, but it actually doesn't say anything. There's no
it's a
real
marketing
context.
it's a marketing piece, right? I mean, it's truly a marketing piece. So how do we then get beyond the resume? We're gonna, we need it, it's part of the process, but now we're moving beyond the resume. We've done a scan. For those of you who are looking at resumes, possibly use this trick and tip that Tabs shared with us of ask them about the benchmarking. So if it doesn't give a lot of detail on that specific spot on the resume, where did the company go when you started to when you left. Maybe using some of that benchmarking as part of your interview process might be a tip and trick they could use.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to start somewhere, right? You've got this piece of paper sitting in front of you, or a lot of
Mm-hmm.
them, right, on your computer screen, and you're like, where do I start? I don't know. So I generally start to look for people that are trying to represent themselves well, right? Like trying to give you details. Maybe they're coming from a similar industry or a similar, sold into similar decision makers, et cetera. I'm trying to look for like some of those details if I'm going off of a resume, but a lot of it comes down to the work you did long before the candidate ever applied. Things like your employer brand, how you represent yourself
Mm-hmm.
out there, right, in the marketplace, the people that you've networked with. And so a lot of times that's where I'm starting versus just the resume. I'm looking for salespeople. So I'm looking for people that are coming to me, that are coming to find me. If they have only applied and they have never followed up with that application, I'm trying to understand how they're going to do in a sales role where they're required to follow up with people if you cannot show me that in the process. But there's a
Yeah.
huge disconnect there, and a lot of people are not doing that. But I'm finding that the top salespeople, which are the ones you're looking to recruit, are doing those. They have those behaviors. They're reaching out to you. They're trying to find
Mm,
a decision maker within the company,
yeah.
whether it's the hiring manager or the recruiter or the CEO, depending on what size company it is. So those are also the behaviors I'm looking for. Now, it doesn't completely disqualify someone if they don't do that, but I always have in the back of my mind, why didn't they take that extra step? And I think right now it's because the market is crazy. Candidates are applying to a lot of jobs, but it's all about, to me, it's a focused strategy, and it shows me a lot about who they are if they do that.
Yeah.
There's one
Steve,
big
I
mistake.
know,
Well,
I know you have something to add on resume stuff.
well, no, it's not even really on resumes. This is another thing none of y'all even know happened. If we don't understand why we're looking at certain things on resumes, we can make a mistake. And there are companies who do not even interview or screen someone who has a gap in their employment history. And I really want to caution everybody to not
Yeah.
assume. You already know what happens when you do this. So
Hmm.
this one gentleman, amazing human, amazing guy, killed it on Sales DNA. This is before Tab. And we were gonna, probably place him at a company. And they said, we don't even want to talk to this guy. I'm like, what are you talking about? You don't find people like this in your industry with this level of, you just don't find them. And they go, the guy's been out of work for 11 months. I said, this is the last time I'm ever going to talk to you. But just so you know, he's been trying not to die. Colon cancer, single dad, 3 girls. You do not deserve to talk to him. So if y'all are making these idiotic assumptions that because there's a gap in employment that someone's sitting home eating Cheetos watching Family Guy, you don't deserve these people. You have to have a level of grace because there's more to life than work, everybody. Just a heads up. So please be careful of what you assume by looking at someone's resume. And it's
Yeah.
probably what Tab said too. We don't necessarily think resumes are the best thing for many reasons, but that's the one thing that I have seen so many companies make a mistake and just assume the person is not good because of
Well,
that.
thank you for bringing that to that really human level, because the reality is they are human behind this. And
Yeah.
sometimes salespeople, and coming from a salesperson, right? We do get that bad rap of, oh, we're able to game the process. So we've got a great story in the job ad that we've been attracted to. The resume is being used as a piece of the process. Now we're getting more into the interview steps, right? And so tell me about, assessments are utilized all over the place. I think it's unusual to find a company that doesn't use an assessment right now. I mean, 6, 7 years ago, not as much, but now I feel like there are just thousands of assessments out there, and people have their favorites, and we certainly do too, because we are experts in sales hiring. So we use a sales specific assessment. So can you talk a little bit about how the sales DNA really pulls out the get it, want it capacity, takes us beyond the people analyzer, and how you use it, how you look at it, Tab, when you're assessing, somebody to send along to one of our clients, right? Because if we send along a candidate to one of our clients, they've passed a couple rounds with you. So
You
talk to
ain't
us.
getting through tab. So
I know, I know.
You guys, I'm not that bad. But hey, you have to, there's a lot you have to look for when you're looking for top performing salespeople. And they can be great people, great humans. It doesn't mean that they have the right experience, right? So that's just part of the vetting process. There's intangibles and all the things. But essentially, when I'm looking at a DNA, after I've had a conversation with someone, because I do want to assess for that initial alignment. And I absolutely think there are times when it's great for the DNA to come as the very first step. And then there are other situations where I feel like it's better for me to have a conversation with someone and for the DNA to come after that. If you're a solo, person working on this, you might need it to come first because that might be how you're saving yourself a ton of time and only talking to the right people when it comes to your role. But that's kind of where I like to put it. And then what I do is I tee up my clients then for what's to come. I give them a framework. I give them a competency-based interview guide that aligns right alongside of the sales DNA, and it looks at all of the different competencies that are measured in the DNA. And so when they get that data back, now they have a direction. They're not like,
Yeah.
oh, they wore cool socks or they went to the same college as me or whatever
They
other.
were being a visionary
Yeah.
who likes to hire based on cool socks, right?
Based on cool socks, based on, and this is
even I wouldn't do that.
but you hear it. Oh, there's someone I've heard this. I've had a client say this to me. I want to know if there's someone I can have a beer with on a Friday night. And I'm like, hard stop. Let's just,
Yes.
let's just calm that down for a second right there. But yeah, in terms of GWC, I mean, I like where the DNA breaks down between your will to sell and
Hmm.
other ingrained behaviors, and that's the most important thing to think about. So Steve talks about character, and that's really what this is. I mean, does somebody really want it? Do they want to be great at what they're doing? Do they want to be a top performing salesperson? Do they have the commitment? Are they going to do the hard things ethically that are required of them to be a top performing salesperson? And so you're looking at things like how they're motivated. Do they take responsibility? These are all things that you are highly unlikely to change in someone without some sort of serious diagnosis, maybe, or some other huge life event that
Yeah.
causes them to completely change who they are as a person. You're not changing these things, you're not training it out of them. So these are the first core competencies I'm looking at before kind of shifting to the next. I see it in kind of three buckets. I can visualize it right now, and that's kind of the first bucket that I look at, and then you move on to some of the middle bucket area, which
The
is
first bucket, just to put a pin in it, the
yeah,
first
yeah,
bucket is what?
the will to sell.
Oh, so we're talking, okay, you're aligning with how the actual sales DNA breaks down. So the first bucket when we're looking at the sales DNA is somebody's will. Do they have the desire? Do they have the commitment? Will they take the responsibility? How are they motivated? So that's the first bucket. It's kind of like that get it, want it smushed together, I sometimes say,
Okay.
For
right?
context, too, for
Yeah.
context for people listening to this on the recording, companies in the US who hire salespeople, okay, if they hire 10 salespeople, 23% of them, 23% become above average performers in 1 year. Companies that hire salespeople utilizing sales DNA, when the will to sell is above a certain level and those folks are hired, 72% of them become top performers, top half performers after a year.
Yeah.
So sales DNA is not 100%. It's not perfect. Oh, they score, but it's 3 times better than
Yeah.
hoping they do good. So the will to sell is the most critical part. And Tab said there are other things we measure, but without the will to sell, the chances of them being a top performer are pretty low.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and for
love
those
that
that don't
predictability.
exactly. And I understand everyone might not, know what sales DNA is, might not have the capacity to use sales DNA right now. So this is the direction that you want to go in when you're hiring, though. These are the things you want to measure. Split it between what is ingrained, what are character attributes versus what are the skills you can train. Just like the tactical things that I say, tactical trainable. Those are the areas that you can bring someone up to speed. You might not want to. So again, it's knowing what your capacity is, what your bandwidth is for doing those things. But if you can do that, you're looking to get someone with the ingrained behaviors that you want and need, and then train them in the areas where they might need a little bit more support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those tactical skills are the hard selling skills. So, and you can take a look for those of you who are listening to this, you can certainly go out and take a look at a sample sales DNA. And if you're not utilizing an assessment, certainly this one is available to you. But if you don't want to utilize it, you can at least look at the 21 competencies that are listed on there and create some of your interview questions around those. But the tactical selling components are things like hunting, relationship building, having an ability to follow a sales process. So these are some things that just by looking at a sample sales DNA out on our website, you can craft your interview questions around these competencies and start asking questions about it. So absolutely so appreciate that. And Steve, like, why is it this one? Why is it the sales DNA that you decided, to put a stake in for the Sales Collective to use as not only our tool that we utilize when we're hiring, but also the tool that we utilize when we're looking at right people, right seats on current teams. We utilize this as in part of the sales team evaluation to be sure that we've got the right sellers that we would hire again. So why is it this one? And, can you talk maybe to why is it this one? And also how does it incorporate with other assessments that companies may be utilizing right now?
There are quite a few good ones out there. And when I say good, and this is also important for y'all's research, there are about roughly 2,500 assessments that you could
Mm-hmm.
buy.
Yeah.
2,500. The challenge is that the overwhelming majority of them are not what's known as predictively valid. What that means is, can they back up the claims they made about their data? And I was in Quebec City like twice, ironically, but they have this thing called poutine up there. Does anyone ever?
I love it.
If you don't
Yes.
know what it is, look it up. It's like
Potatoes and cheese, bring it on.
73,000 calories. Anyway, it's amazing. Better than, as Connor knows, what's up Rochester poutine's better. Anyway, but I went by all these restaurants in Quebec City, and unsurprisingly, every restaurant had a sign that said Canada's greatest poutine. Okay. That's not predictive validity, everybody, right? That's just making up. 96% of assessments just put a sign up and tell you their data is good. The reason we use sales DNA is because it's one of the 4% that are predictively valid, that you can look at their technical manual and you can see the outside study they've done to corroborate the data. And if you use sales DNA in conjunction with other predictively valid assessments, many of y'all know the names, it gives you a much better chance, again, to make a better hire. And the last thing I'll share, because Tab and Kate love my sports analogies, y'all will know this one, pretty sure. If you're going to draft a quarterback in football, a quarterback, number one overall, what should, they be good at doing? Even y'all will know this.
Throwing.
Oh, what a surprise. So you should probably see if they can throw. When you use an assessment for a salesperson that will tell you what they're like as a +1 at the office party, or what color they are, or what type of dinosaur they would be, that's not going to help you determine whether or not they're good at selling your thing. That's why sales DNA comes first. Can they sell Bob Ross coffee cups in San Diego? Then you can assess them with some of the other things for culture fit or whatever assessments y'all want to use. But they have to be able to sell first.
They have
That's
to be able
why
to
I
sell.
love sales DNA.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And also, for those companies that are running on EOS, we know how important it is that there's core value alignment. So by utilizing something that puts some objective nature around their selling skills and their will to do it and their mindset and beliefs, to be successful at it, it leaves time to really focus on, culture fit, within that interview series. So, thank you guys both. I think we've got some really good ideas here, for folks who are playing along at home. We have the focus on making sure that the job ads that we're putting out there are more about a story, right? And really focusing on attracting, possibly repelling people by talking about the impact that that salesperson will have. We've talked about the resume as a marketing collateral, right? So how much do we really pay attention to it? Well, it's there, we need to use it, but maybe we start talking about asking questions around benchmarks. In the interview process, we really want to focus on spending time on culture fit and possibly using assessment that really tweaks out their selling skills. What are some last thoughts that you guys have before we wrap this up on making sure that we attract the right person for the selling seat?
For me, it's one thing I've really been driving home recently with clients is the details behind the buzzwords. It's the explain your business to me like I'm 10, like I've never heard of it before, and I have no idea what you do. And they'll start to explain stuff. Usually it's accompanied by a lot of different buzzwords and no context. And so that's where I've really been deep diving with clients and where I encourage people to go is every time you hear yourself use a buzzword, a singular buzzword, stop and or write it all down. And then every time you could see one, highlight it, underline it, and then go through a story, write down a story that accompanies that buzzword that backs up your claims. If you want candidates to back up their claims, not just say they were a President's Club winner, a top performer, they were 500% to quota. If you want to know what goes behind that, well, then you also have to be willing to go deeper into what makes you you and why that matters and who you're even trying to attract. And if you can't answer those things before you start, then I encourage you to do that before you start. Like Steve always says, decide how you're going to decide before you get things going. So that's what I would want to leave people with today.
That's awesome. Thanks, Tab.
I would say buyer beware. And what I mean is you can't trust your eyes. There's a reason why eyewitness testimony doesn't really hold up in court. You can't just hire people because you like them, which is the single biggest factor in why companies hire one candidate over another. So trust the data, right? The data's been there for 35 years. It's really hard to trust data after you've already let bias seek in. So if you are not using data and you're just falling in love with a candidate before they do the DNA test, you will then ignore the data because you're already in love with them. So that's why, again, I'm such a proponent of get the data first. It's unbiased data. You're biased. So the confirmation bias thing is really something to beware of because that's where we get in trouble with hires instead of looking at alternative ways.
Thank you both. EOS teaches us to rely on data as one of the components, for a healthy business. And so really appreciate you talking about the process and the people, which are also, components that we focus on when we're running on EOS. And if you want more information, if you're listening to this, in a recording or with us live, and you want some more information on kind of a DIY of how to incorporate some of these tactics that we've talked about, you can certainly go to our website, go to our hiring section. We've got a lot of tools there for you. And then you can also reach out to me. My information is going to be dropped into the chat. I am happy to have an IDS session around hiring sales folks and making sure you get the right people in those seats to really drive your revenue goals for this year. And please stay tuned. We're going to have more webinar series in the Rocks to Revenue series, and we'll have more folks coming from the Sales Collective, our incredible team of experts that help with hiring, like Tab, with building playbooks, with doing coaching and training. And we would just love to continue to see you tune in. So thank you all so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you
Thanks,
so
y'all.
much.
See y'all.
Bye.
Bye.